Look at New York City, the greatest symbol of human ambition and architectural power ever created by our species during the long history of modern civilization on this planet. However, deep beneath the glowing lights and the majestic skyline lies a dark secret that urban planners are desperately trying to hide from the millions of unsuspecting local residents. The magnificent city is actually far too heavy for the ground beneath it, carrying a staggering weight of 1,700,000,000,000 pounds of concrete, steel, and glass. This immense pressure is relentlessly crushing the fragile layers of silt and clay, causing the entire metropolitan area to slowly disappear into the earth from the top toward bottom. While the entire world is constantly worrying about the rising sea levels, New York is facing a much more dangerous threat by literally drowning itself through its own massive weight. Imagine 140 million elephants standing on a single small island, and you will begin to understand the terrifying physical force currently pressing down on the very fragile bedrock. Every single skyscraper, from the iconic Empire State Building to the modern luxury towers, contributes to this silent disaster that is slowly reshaping the landscape of the entire eastern coastline. As the ground continues to sink several millimeters every year, the invisible infrastructure of the city begins to fracture under the unbearable stress of this unprecedented and uncontrollable geological phenomenon. We often think of these buildings as permanent monuments to our success, but they might actually be the heavy anchors that eventually drag this entire glorious civilization into the deep. Join us as we explore the terrifying reality of a metropolis that is simply too massive to survive, uncovering the hidden flaws in the foundation of the world's greatest center. If we do not address this sinking crisis today, the future of the American dream might be found buried under layers of mud and the rising tides of the Atlantic. Let us dive deep into the science and history of why the most powerful city on the entire Earth is slowly becoming its own massive grave due to human engineering. To understand why New York is currently sinking, we must first examine the historical myth that the entire city was built on a foundation of incredibly solid and unbreakable prehistoric bedrock. For over 100 years, engineers and architects believed that the hard schist beneath Manhattan could support any weight we dared to stack upon it during our quest for the sky. While it is true that Midtown and the northern parts of the island possess rock very close to the surface, the reality for the rest of the city is much different. Moving south into the financial district and across the rivers to Brooklyn and Queens, the solid rock suddenly disappears deep underground, leaving behind a very treacherous mixture of unstable material. During the last ice age, retreating glaciers dumped massive amounts of loose sand, soft silt, and wet clay, creating the shaky ground that millions of people now call their permanent home. These specific geological layers were never designed by nature to carry the immense load of thousands of massive apartment buildings and office towers that now dominate the modern New York skyline. When you look at the iconic image of the city, you see triumph, but underneath the pavement, there is a chaotic and soft graveyard of prehistoric debris that is slowly yielding. Many residents living in the outer boroughs do not realize that their massive skyscrapers are essentially standing on a thick bed of mud that behaves more like liquid over long periods. This geological inconsistency creates a dangerous imbalance, where certain parts of the city remain stable, while others are forced to compress the soft earth beneath them at an alarming annual rate. Early 20th century builders often ignored these subterranean warnings in their rush to construct the tallest structures in the world, assuming that the ground would simply hold firm against the pressure. We have spent several decades adding billions of tons of weight to these fragile coastal zones without truly understanding the long-term consequences of building a heavy empire on such shifting sands. The illusion of stability is now beginning to crack as the weight of the city finally exceeds the natural load-bearing capacity of the ancient soil layers hiding beneath the busy city streets. In the following chapters, we will reveal how this architectural arrogance led to the exact moment where the ground could no longer support the massive dreams of the New York elite. The contrast between the hard rock of the north and the soft mud of the south is the primary reason why New York City is now facing an unprecedented existential crisis. It is a battle between human engineering and the fundamental laws of gravity, and unfortunately, the earth underneath the city is currently losing this silent and invisible war for survival today. As we peel back the layers of asphalt and concrete, the true vulnerability of this global financial powerhouse becomes shockingly clear to anyone willing to look closely at the geological data. No amount of steel reinforcement can change the fact that much of New York is essentially an island floating on a foundation of wet sand and forgotten glacial silt from yesterday. The grand illusion of the city on a rock is finally fading away, replaced by a much more terrifying reality of a metropolis that is slowly sinking into its own foundation. Every single brick and beam in New York City adds up to a staggering total of 1,700,000,000,000 pounds of heavy material pressing down on the planet. A recent scientific study conducted by the United States Geological Survey has finally revealed the terrifying truth about the actual weight of the entire built environment in Manhattan today. To put this massive number into a human perspective, imagine the combined weight of approximately 140 million African elephants, all standing together on a single tiny coastal island. This immense downward force is currently squeezing the water out of the soil layers, causing the ground to sink at an average rate of 1 to 2 millimeters every year. In certain high-risk areas like LaGuardia Airport, the rate of subsidence is actually doubling to 4 millimeters annually, which creates a catastrophic scenario for the future of regional infrastructure. As the heavy buildings compress the soft clay and silt beneath them, the earth becomes permanently deformed, making it impossible for the surface to ever return to its original height. The most dangerous part of this phenomenon is that it is happening silently and invisibly, slowly tearing apart the aging network of pipes and electric cables hidden beneath our feet. The historic New York City subway system, which carries 5 million passengers every single day, is now facing severe structural distortion because the ground beneath the tracks is constantly shifting. When the ground sinks unevenly, it creates massive tension in the foundations of older buildings, leading to deep cracks in the walls and significant instability for the residents living inside. Water mains are bursting more frequently across the 5 boroughs because the cast iron pipes cannot handle the relentless movement caused by the sinking city and its massive weight. Many scientists now warn that New York is essentially dissolving from the inside out as the underground environment becomes increasingly saturated with salt water and collapsing mud layers today. The sheer magnitude of this architectural load is creating a geological footprint that will last for thousands of years, even if we were to remove every building in the city. We are witnessing a slow-motion disaster where the very structures designed to provide shelter are instead becoming the primary cause of the city's eventual destruction and total environmental failure. Every new luxury skyscraper added to the skyline only increases the pressure on the already exhausted Earth, pushing the city closer to a point of no return for its inhabitants. This fatal flaw in the design of modern urban centers proves that we cannot continue to build upward without considering the physical limits of the ground that supports our weight. The relationship between the massive steel beams and the soft geological layers is a delicate balance that has finally been broken by our relentless desire for more urban density. As the city continues to drop lower into the earth, the risk of massive flooding during even the smallest rainstorms increases significantly, threatening the lives of millions of New Yorkers. We must acknowledge that the weight of our success is literally pulling us down, creating a hidden danger that most people walking the streets of Manhattan never even stop to consider. This massive geological shift is not just a scientific curiosity, but a life-threatening reality for the most expensive real estate market currently existing on the entire surface of the planet. The data confirms that the more we build to save the city, the faster we accelerate the process of its inevitable burial beneath the mud of the Atlantic coastal region. Understanding this fatal flaw is the only way we can hope to develop new strategies for urban survival in an era where the ground itself is no longer a stable foundation. The weight of 1,700,000,000,000 pounds is a heavy burden that the Earth was never meant to carry in such a concentrated area of our modern world. As we move forward, we must decide if the glory of our towering skylines is worth the gradual loss of the very land upon which those magnificent structures were built. The silent crumbling of New York's internal organs is a warning to every other coastal city on Earth that weight is just as dangerous as the rising ocean waves today. In a desperate attempt to protect the vulnerable coastline from future flooding, New York City has launched a massive infrastructure project known as the Big U around Lower Manhattan. This monumental engineering effort carries a price tag of nearly $2 billion and aims to create a giant barrier system to block the rising waves of the Atlantic. While this wall can effectively stop seawater from crashing into the streets, it completely fails to address the underlying problem of the entire city sinking from its own weight. The construction involves pouring millions of tons of heavy concrete and steel reinforcement along the very edges of the island where the ground is already the most unstable today. We are facing a tragic paradox because the very structures we build to protect the city are actually making it much heavier and causing it to sink even faster now. By concentrating so much weight on the fragile coastal perimeter, we are inadvertently accelerating the compression of the soft silt layers that have supported Manhattan for thousands of years. Engineers have warned that adding these massive floodgates and concrete levees will likely increase the rate of subsidence by several millimeters in the most vulnerable neighborhoods across the city. This multi-billion-dollar solution is merely a temporary bandage that ignores the fundamental geological reality that New York is simply too heavy for the planet to hold up anymore. Even if we stop the waves from the outside, the sinking ground will eventually cause groundwater to bubble up through the sewers and destroy the foundations of the city anyway. We continue to throw more concrete at the problem, creating a vicious cycle where each attempt to save the city only adds more pressure to its already collapsing underground structures. Other global coastal metropolises are watching this experiment closely, but many experts fear that New York is leading them toward a dead end of unsustainable and heavy engineering failures. Instead of using light and flexible natural defenses, we have chosen the most rigid and heavy materials possible, which is the exact opposite of what a sinking city needs today. Politicians love the visual strength of a massive wall, but gravity does not care about optics and will continue to pull that heavy concrete deeper into the dark coastal mud. As the wall itself begins to sink along with the city, the maintenance costs will skyrocket into tens of billions of dollars over the next several decades of our century. Ultimately, the Big U represents the height of human stubbornness, trying to fight a geological disaster with the very same material that caused the problem in the first place today. When the ocean rises and the city drops, these walls will eventually become nothing more than expensive monuments to a civilization that refused to understand the limits of its weight. We are currently building a fortress that is slowly drowning itself, proving that sometimes our most expensive solutions are actually the most dangerous mistakes in our long architectural history. Look at the terrifying convergence of two deadly forces, as the ocean rises from above and the city sinks into the earth from below during this current 21st century. By the year 2050, the sea level around New York is projected to rise by 20 to 75 centimeters, creating a permanent state of crisis for local residents. When the rising tide meets the sinking foundation, the result is a total erasure of the coastal neighborhoods that once represented the heart of the glorious American dream today. We are witnessing a slow-motion collision between geological subsidence and climate change, a dual threat that no other modern metropolis has ever faced on this massive global scale. Property worth more than $2.1 trillion is currently located in high-risk flood zones that could be completely underwater by the end of this century. This is not just a scientific prediction for the far future, but a daily reality for thousands of people whose basements are already flooding during every heavy rainstorm now. The salt water from the Atlantic is slowly eating away at the steel reinforcements of our skyscrapers, weakening the very bones of the city through a silent process of corrosion. We must ask ourselves if New York City is simply too magnificent to survive the harsh physical realities of a planet that can no longer support its crushing weight anymore. Would you choose to live in a luxury apartment on the 80th floor if you knew the foundation beneath your feet was slowly turning into soft and liquid mud? The hubris of human engineering is finally meeting the ultimate limit of nature, proving that even the most powerful concrete empires can eventually fall back into the dark earth. Many families in Brooklyn and Queens are already noticing the subtle signs of their homes tilting and their street pavements cracking as the soil continues to give way today. There is no simple escape from this geological trap, as every new plan to save the city requires more weight, which only accelerates the inevitable process of sinking deeper. We are approaching a moment of reckoning where the financial capital of the world must decide between radical transformation or becoming a modern version of the lost city. The warning lights are flashing in every geological department across the country, yet the construction of massive new towers continues without any regard for the unstable ground below. Please leave your comments below about whether you believe New York can truly be saved, or if we are merely watching the slow death of a legendary coastal giant. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel for more deep investigations into the hidden forces that are currently shaping the future of our modern civilization and global cities. This final warning is for every inhabitant of the coast, because the fate of New York today might be the dark destiny of every major city tomorrow morning. The weight of £1,700,000,000,000 is a heavy debt that we are finally being forced to pay back to the earth in blood and stone. As the sun sets over the Manhattan skyline, we must wonder if our children will see these same towers or only a vast ocean covering the ruins of success.